Hi, I developed a technique called the custom overgrip wrap. In this video, I'll show you how it can benefit you in 5 ways. Alright, let's go inside. In case you were wondering, I did a previous video with the same exact title. I filmed that 2 years ago and I recently watched it. I felt it was a little long and it was ready for an update. So in this video, I'll share the same content, add a bonus tip, and make it under 22 minutes. Alright, let's get started. Alright, we'll start off with benefit number 1. Now, a lot of you like using overgrip on top of your original replacement grip. But as you know, if you add an overgrip on top of that, it does increase it by usually 1 size. So in this technique, I'll show you how you can add an overgrip and maintain your original grip size. Alright, benefit number 2 is improve your grip maintenance. So let's say you're the type of player that doesn't like to use an overgrip. Maybe because of the fact it does build up your grip, or maybe because you can't feel the bevels. By using this technique, you'll be able to use an overgrip and replace your grip more often instead of removing the replacement grip in that process. This leads us to benefit number 3, save money. So instead of replacing the replacement grip, you'll be replacing it with an overgrip, where you get 3 for the price of 1. Number 4, ensure proper grip sizing for young players. Now, I have parents sometimes that'll wrap overgrips every time their child's grip gets scuffed up or dirty. And before you know it, there's multiple layers on top of the child's grip. So this will help make sure that the grip is not too big. And finally, number 5, you can use this technique to decrease your grip size. All right, let's get into it. All right, let's take a look at our tools and supplies. I have a pair of scissors, double stick tape in a 1/2 inch and a full inch. Now this Prince Resi Pro is what I use typically as the base whenever I'm using this technique. And I like it because it has good thickness and padding, and as I'm stretching it, it doesn't thin out. You'll also need your overgrip that you want to use as your final layer. I have a grip sizer, and I featured this in another video. A wheel roller that actually has a longer name, and I have a Sharpie pen. Okay, so for this particular customer, he has a 4.5 grip, but I'm gonna go ahead and measure it to see what it is now because it might have compressed over time. So it's right between a 3/8 and a half right now. But what he wants is he wants a dry textured grip, so I recommended this dry grip because he has sweaty hands. But he wants to maintain the grip size. So what I'm gonna do is remove the grip and then start the first layer. Okay, so I have the Prince Overgrip, the Resi Pro, and earlier I mentioned that I like it because of the fact that it has good padding. It doesn't thin out when you stretch it, and it also actually builds it up 1 grip size using this technique every time I use it as a base, and you'll see that. But I'll go ahead and start the first layer, and again the grip is a 4.5, and that's a size that in the end I want to make sure that we can get to that. So what I'm going to do is let's just measure the pallet just to see where we're at, and it's coming in at 4 1/8, which makes sense because if you add 3 sizes to that, it'll come out to 4.5. And the way I'm going to apply this first layer is I want to put double stick tape, and I'll start off with the 1/2 inch, and I'm going to use this only on the butt cap area. So I have an angled cut right here, and I'm just going to go along the butt cap at the end here, and basically I'm going to just apply this to the butt cap area. So over the years I've perfected this technique, and I found that this way works the best when I use the 1/2 inch in the butt cap area, and I'll show you why later. But so basically I have it wrapped around just like that in that area, and then I'm going to use the full inch for the rest of the overgrip. So I have it turned upside down, and I have it angled cut right here. So what I'm going to do is match that to this end right here as far as I can go up to the tip of it. And it's perfect because the width of the overgrip is about 1 inch. So what I'm gonna do is I just put it on the back of the overgrip, And what I like to do is keep this grip straight. So I do about 6 inches at a time when I apply the double stick tape, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my elbow down here, and on this end I'll pull it, but not stretch it. I'll just pull it so the grip under here is straight. And what I'm gonna do is I'll work it with about 4 to 6 inches at a time, and just kind of move it down the grip. And as I get towards the other end, I'll just keep pulling it up. And again, the key is to hold it down with your elbow and just hold it over here with your thumb. And I am putting a little tension, but not stretching it out like really hard. So I'll just keep doing this until I get about 6 inches to the end, because I won't have to actually use this whole grip. So I'll just keep going. And of course, if it's a smaller grip, then I probably would start, I wouldn't go this far, but I'm about 6 inches from the end of the overgrip. I'll just go ahead and cut it. Just make sure it's on here. All right. So what I'm gonna do is just take off the backing from the butt cap. And then I'll start wrapping the overgrip on here. All right, so I'm gonna start here. It doesn't really matter where you start. I always like to start on the flat edge of the butt cap, but you could start on the side if you wanted to. Now this is the part that you really want to make sure that I am putting some tension here, I'm stretching it. And I want to make sure that as I rotate this racket around, when it does meet up to that end where you started, you have to start angling it so that the edge of the overgrip, it doesn't overlap as much as possible. Well, this beginning part, you can't help it. It'll have to overlap a little bit, but you'll see that there was a slight overlap there, but as I get further down, I'm gonna start making it so they're flush, they're butted up against each other. So after I'm done wrapping this, I'll bring it up so you can see it. But basically you wanna just make sure, again, you're not gonna have any overlap, because that's gonna create bumps in the grip. And really what you wanna do is get this as flat as possible. So you're just using this as a build-up material. And because this builds it up about one size, it is an alternative way to build up a grip if you don't want to use a heat shrink sleeve. And it does weigh about half of what a heat shrink sleeve would weigh. So it does keep the weight down if you wanted to use this as for that purpose. So there might be some slight gaps in some of these, and I'll bring it up, but you definitely don't want to overlap it. So as much as possible, you want to make sure that it's nice and flush to each other. And I'm gonna go all the way up to the top of the palette, and then eventually just cut it so it matches the top edge. All right, so reaching the end here. All right, so I got my Sharpie pen here. I'm just gonna go ahead and mark the end where it ends up, right there. And what I'm gonna do is make my cut from these two marks that I made, right there, to match up the top of the palette. Now I have my finishing tape that I'm gonna put on the end here, but I like to just make it so it's lined up with the top edge. So I'll go ahead and put it on and show you. So I do this with the base overgrips when I'm using this technique. Because I like the way it looks. It just makes it look like it's like a palette. Like it's part of the palette. Alright, so I'm gonna use my wheel roller and then I'll bring it up to you. So this wheel roller is really good when you're working with grips because you can really flatten it down and get the grip to stick down onto the palette in this case. So I'm just gonna do all 8 sides, and just really get it down there. All right, so I'll bring this up and I'll show it to you. So you'll see that there's a slight gap over there. I probably could have done a little bit better job, but again, it's better that you have a little gap than to have it overlap. So you can see that it's nice and flat, no bumps here. All right, so that's layer number 1. So let's go ahead and I'll measure this. It started off at 4 1/8. So right now it's right at 4 1/4. So that's perfect because, you know, again, you want to build it up one size at a time. All right, so here's where you have a couple of options. Earlier I mentioned one of the benefits is you can use it to decrease your grip size. So if I did want to reduce this from a 4 1/2 to a 3/8, what I would do at that point is just go ahead and use your overgrip that you want as the final layer and just wrap it like a normal overgrip. And in the end, what will happen is you're gonna get a grip size that's one size smaller. The only thing is that it'll be less padding because now you just have 2 of these layers. Ideally, you want to have 3 layers of overgrip to make it feel more normal, like a replacement grip. So yeah, that would be the option in decreasing your grip size. All right, but this customer, he wants his racket, his grip to be the same size as it started. So I'm gonna go ahead and repeat this process for layer number 2, and I'll come back to you. Oh, before I start the second layer, I did want to mention a couple of things. Earlier when I used the 1/2 inch double stick tape on the butt cap, the reason for that is that I found that if you try to use the full inch, and even if I try to run it, if I run it all the way up to the end of the grip, what I found was that as I tried to put tension on it, as I was trying to stretch it and angle it, there would be a tendency of the tape ripping in the back. So I figured out that having the tape on the grip or the butt cap first and then stretching this over was more effective. The other thing I'm gonna make note of is on the first layer, I started wrapping the end with the butt cap down. So in the second layer, I'm gonna just flip it over and just kind of even it out and wrap it around that way. As I'm finishing up this second layer, you'll notice here that I cut it so that I was short of this black tape. I didn't go all the way up to the end of the palette. And I just like it that way because if I went all the way up and with the finishing tape, there would be a big bump over here. So it's just my personal preference. So I'll go ahead and put the finishing tape on there, and you'll notice that it'll look like there's 2 rows of finishing tape next to each other. And to me, it just feels like it's a more natural angle, and it won't leave a bump at the end. All right, so this is what it looks like. So there's more of an angle over here versus a bump at the end. And I'll show you the rest of the grip. I went ahead and flattened it with the wheel roller, but you can see that it's pretty flat. And again, in the butt cap area, there's a little bit of overlap over here, but that can't be helped. It's just that once you get to this part, you'll notice that it starts to flatten out. All right, so let's take a measurement and we'll see where this is at. All right, we're doing good. So right now it's at 4 3/8. So I'll go ahead and wrap the final overgrip and we should get it up to a 4 1/2. All right, so as I'm finishing up the final layer, I already wrapped the overgrip, and this was wrapped the more traditional way with the overlaps. I use a Sharpie pen, but it's actually a silver metallic Sharpie pen, and I find it works really good on black grips, especially because if you're using a regular pen, which is a black or blue, or it doesn't show up when you're trying to mark your cut. So, well, this one's running out of ink, so I guess I need to get a new one, but I'll bring it up, and it normally is darker than what I'm gonna show you, but you can actually see where the mark is. But if I was using a black ink pen, then yeah, it's harder to see. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and make my cut from the marks that I created. And we're gonna wrap it up, measure it, and see where we're at. So yeah, obviously this one is at the end of the palette, so you wanna make sure that finishes that way. And with the finishing tape, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I actually overlap it so that it's partly on the grip and partly on the frame, like how you would normally put this finishing tape on. All right, and I'll just move this rubber band collar here down to it. All right, let's take the measurement. All right, it's perfect. It's right at 4.5. All right, so I'll bring it up to you so you can see it. And you'll notice that vertical line is right in that number 4. So that's 4.5. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and now show you the bonus tip. So for this bonus tip, I was trying to figure out a cheaper way to maintain my rackets that I have for my kids that I teach. And instead of replacing the replacement grip, I'll use just one overgrip each time I need to change it. So I have a racket here that you can see it's clearly worn. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it off, and I'll show you the technique, but I'm just taking this off really quickly for now. So what'll happen is I can buy a jar like this with a lot of overgrips, and it comes out way cheaper than trying to replace a grip every time I need to put a new grip on. So what I'll do is I'll wrap it. I'm gonna actually overlap it, so there's gonna be a double layer basically. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the wrap, and as I come over here, as I'm angling down the butt cap, I don't know if you can see that right there. So what I'm gonna do is start the next wrap right at that edge right there. So I'll go ahead and continue wrapping it, and in the end, what really is happening is that I'm actually double layering this wrap, but I'm only using one overgrip for this, and because the junior grips are so small, you can get away with just one overgrip. So I'll go ahead and continue that. Well, I'll show you it now, but so you can see what it looks like so far. So it's nice and flat, but again, because I'm butting up the edge so that it's double layering each as I go, it's providing some padding. It won't be as soft maybe as the original grip, but a lot of times these junior rackets that have the grips, they're not that padded anyway. So I feel like this is good enough, and in the end you'll save because you can just get by with just using over grips instead of replacement grips. All right, so I just made enough to the end right here. I came up to the end right here, so I'll go ahead and mark it off and cut it and do what I did on the previous grip. I'll just go ahead and mark it first. And I like to make sure that the kids have grips that are decent, and I don't like it when it gets all grungy and worn down. So I'll do this periodically, but again, it's so much cheaper doing it this way than having to buy an actual replacement grip. So in the end, this is actually decreasing the grip size a little bit because I am going with just the overgrip. But again, it's 2 layers of this overgrip, so you can see that it comes out really nice. And then you can change the colors too to make it color coordinated. All right, so that's it. That's the tip. And I think I did this under 22 minutes. I got to check the time, but thanks for watching. Happy wrapping. And let your strings play.